Okay, here we go. My name is Tom. I'm going to attempt to put this solid state hard drive in my 2009 iMac 10.1 in place of the Superdrive. So my end goal here is to have this become the boot drive. I hope to get a 3 gigabits per second data link. I know the Superdrive is only 1.5 gigabits per second, but I went in there and it looks like the link is capable of 3. So I hope to achieve that. So what I'd like to do at the end of the day is have the computer boot off this, and then I'm going to try to take the 1 terabyte drive that's in there and create a fusion drive with this thing, and then I'll restore everything that's currently on the 1 terabyte drive on the system. So what I've done, just because I want to be extra careful, I've made 2 time machine backups of this entire machine, which is about 900 gig right now. So if one fails in the middle, I still won't lose everything because I haven't yet a secondary redundant backup. So I've done that and trying to prepare. The other thing, I've watched a bunch of videos. There's another pretty good one on YouTube about basically the same installation. The only thing that wasn't discussed very much, which I hope I'll get a chance to, is there are a couple connectors in here that can be finicky. There's one, I think, up in the top left over here. And there's one about midway down in the logic board that it looks like a few people have broken that connector off, and it's got like 30 pins on it. So even if you get a replacement, it's fairly difficult to solder back on. The thing that scares me, the people that broke it, many of them did know how to solder, so that means they're familiar with electronics, and they still broke it. So I'm a little bit worried about that. So hopefully I can expand on that a little bit when I get in here. So anyway, the first thing we're going to do is I get some suction cups from Home Depot. So I didn't get a chance to get them from OWC. They're huge. I'm going to stick it on here, pop the glass off. I did get the original box this thing came in. If you go onto one of the OWC videos, they show you how to maybe use that to store your glass when it's when you're working on the computer. And I've got the bag that the thing originally came in. I'm going to store my display in there, and they tell you try not to get skin oil on the LCD itself. So anyway, there are also other couple techniques. I've seen people do it standing up like this, and I've seen people lay it down. I don't know which one is better. We'll just see how it goes and see where I become more comfortable with it. So here we go. So here we go. First, mega suction cups. These things are kind of overkill for what I'm doing, but that's what they had at Home Depot. So a lot of people seem to put one about here, and they put another one in this corner a little bit. And it looks like you just give it a little pull. It's not coming off as easy as I thought. Okay, punt. So in that case, I don't know how these people just pop it off. I'm going to lay this thing down. We're going to go with that method because I'm afraid I'm going to knock it over. Now, the other thing I've done here is I've taped this towel to the table because I was afraid that this thing might slide around. So I'm going to hook it on over here. We're going to try it again. Okay, came off. It wasn't too bad. So here's the glass. Going to try to keep dust from getting on it. I'm going to set it in the iMac box. Okay, so I'm back. I found a tool that will work. Lesson learned. You want something like this that's not just a tip. This thing is so wide that it'll barely fit down in here, so I took a grinder in the interim here and smoothed this out a little bit. So I pulled my first screw out, so we'll just go ahead and take the rest out. They don't appear to be too tight. These magnets can suck them in. I've noticed if you just kind of are careful when you lift it out and go sideways, they'll kind of stick in, so that's not that big of a deal. They're really not torqued very tight, so you probably want to note that when you go back in so you don't over torque it. So this came out pretty easy. I'm going to take a quick break. I'll finish the other side. Okay, so the screws came out. It wasn't too hard. In one of the videos they recommend getting a paper clip to lift this up. I'm going to try to do it with just a little screwdriver. Other people have said that's not really necessary. So I'll find something here. Maybe if I can just lift the edge up a little bit. Yeah, I can see how it comes up. It's pretty heavy though. I don't know how a paper clip would lift that. So what I did is I brought this little level. It's like a plastic spacer I'm going to use. So what I'd like to do is kind of get this thing going and stick something under there just to kind of hold it up as I work it. Now like I said, there's a connector up here, so you just don't want to pick this up or you're going to rip something out. So here it comes. Okay, so I have enough where I can grab it with my fingers perhaps. I'm going to use this just to stick up under here to kind of lift it up so I can see what's going on. So I'm going to try not to touch the screen either. They tell you that's not a good thing to do. So here we go. I see some of the wires already. I'm going to stick this thing right here for the moment. And there's not a lot of slack over here, I can tell you that. So I'm just going to stick this up under here so it won't fall. Okay, so here I am. I'm just going to kind of get a look up under here with the flashlight. And I see this is extremely tight. Tighter than I had hoped. Especially, there's a connector for the video card and it's, I'm not even liking what I'm seeing right now. There's not a lot of slack in there. It looks like it's taped up to the back side of the screen, so I may just try to pull that tape down because the connector in the middle is the one that's extremely fragile that you don't want to break. So anyway, I'm going to, I think I'm going to work on this one first, over here in the corner. Mine looks like a little ribbon cable. Apparently you have to be very careful removing this. So I'm going to get on the other side there and get a pair of needle nose. They recommend tweezers, but a lot of people have complained they can't get enough grip, so we'll see how it goes. Okay, so that wasn't too hard to get out. I just used my fingers. Basically, you probably can't see this, but there's a little blue tab on here. You can kind of grip that, and what's interesting, it looks like one of these contacts may have been damaged. I'm going to look at it under a microscope, but it's not from me pulling it out. It would have been like this from the factory. So I'll take a quick look at this with a magnifying glass later. Okay, so here goes nothing. I made myself a little prop rod for the screen. I'm going to try to get down in there and pinch this connector and pull it out. Hopefully I'll get a shot of this after I do it. This is the most critical part. I obviously don't want to knock my prop rod out. In fact, I think I'll stick something else in its place just in case that happens. Not sure what that would be. Maybe this Mac keyboard box here would be a fine safety. So I won't crush anything if something goes wrong here. So I'm going to stick my hands down here. I kind of see the two levers. It looks like they're pinch in. I'm going to go lightly, see what happens. Although they might be pull out. This is what I don't like doing right here. I have no idea how this thing releases. All I know is it is disastrous if you screw up. Okay, so I successfully got this cable off. Honestly, after looking at some pictures online, how these things are constructed, I was pretty chicken, but I got it off. It didn't take much force, so it's all technique and knowing how to release the tabs, which I'll show you when I get this off. So there's this connector, which is the ribbon cable, which I think is a vertical sync connector. This is the main video connector. I believe it's 30 pins. Then over on this right side, there is a connector that looks pretty beefy to get the LED backlighting off, and I believe there is one more for a temperature sensor that doesn't look too bad to get off. It's right here in the center. It's got a black and white twisted wire, small little black connector. It looks like it's pretty strong, so I'm not too worried at this point. I got this one off. And looking at it, it doesn't look too bad to get it back on. There are some pictures that I saw online that look worse than this. So anyway, I think past the point I was worried about. Okay, so I've managed to get the connectors undone. So recapping for the 10th time, ribbon cable here wasn't really very hard. There was like a little blue plastic piece that I could pull on with just my hand. The center one, which I'll show you, there's two little metal tabs that you can actually push in with your fingernails from both sides. They don't take much pressure, and then just gently wiggle it back. On the far side, there's an LCD backlighting connector. It had a little locking tab that kind of went over a little ridge on the connector. I just took a tiny screwdriver and kind of lifted it up and wiggled it, came right back. And then there's a temp sensor in the middle of the screen. Very light pressure, just came right out. So I think I'm ready to lift the LCD out. I'm going to check one more time to make sure there are no cables. I'm not going to rip something off because that would be disastrous. So I'll just take a peek up under here. Looks like everything is free and clear. So I'm going to take a suggestion from OWC, and I'm going to put this thing in the bag that the whole computer originally came in. So I'm just going to take this prop rod here. I'm going to try not to touch the screens. I think you just slide it a little bit, and here we go. And this thing's got tons of dust on it, which, like I said, I'm kind of amazed about. So I may clean this up. I'm going to set it right here just so you can look at it for a second. So here's the ribbon cable. This piece, I don't know if you can see very well, but there are some little metal tabs, not the big black ones, but right inside that these things push in very lightly. They're like a little clip. So it doesn't take much force. You just got to push the little tiny silver piece in. This came right out. Here's the backlighting LCD. Wasn't too bad either. So hopefully I got all this. If I don't, I'll take a picture of it. Okay, so here's a close-up of the little clips I was pushing in with my fingernails. It's a little silver part. You push inward, the black does not move. You shouldn't need much force to remove this. I pushed these in when I was inserting the connector too. I'm not sure if that was necessary, but since I'm not experienced at this, I didn't want to break that since it's a real pain in the butt to fix. Okay, so I put the screen actually face down on the plastic bag. It was very hard to get in. So I just pulled out 4 T10 Torx screws. There is a temp sensor on this thing, which I will connect back up to the drive. I don't think it's really going to get hot, but however, I don't want the fan to be running full speed or anything crazy. So the wire goes way over here. You can see it's kind of tucked down under the fan, so I have to be careful. And unfortunately, it's going under the wires for the, looks like the SATA connector. So I'm just going to see if I can kind of ease this back. It looks like it's, with a little gentle prying, the connector comes off. So that's good. Just going to grab it, pair of needle nose here, just get it up out of the way. So this looks like the data connector. Now I can probably get this temp sensor wire up here. And this looks like a very easy connector to get out. I'm just going to give it a little tug. I might even use the micro screwdriver just to help it. Yep, came right out. No problem. Okay, so hopefully this is just going to lift out of here. Yep. So here we go. I'm going to take these screws out, and I think the data doubler fits right in. So we'll go from there. I believe that's a T8. Unfortunately, there aren't too many screws here, so I'm not having to worry too much about getting screws mixed up. There's only 8 for the display. 4 for this. And I can't even remember what I did with the other, where I got the other 4 from. Oh, mounting this thing. So it looks like this just kind of pulls out of here. Nope, there's 2 more screws on the back. Okay, this should just come out. I guess this tape here is probably just to keep the thing sealed up for proper airflow management and cooling. So I'm just going to gently kind of peel this up. I've done this before. This foil never quite goes back on the same way, but I'm going to be gentle with it. Okay, so here we go. Some little pins in here that line up the DVD drive. At least I think that's what those are. Yep. Okay, once those line up, the rest of your screw holes should be fine. Okay, so now all I have to do is 2 things. You can see I just trapped this connector, not a good idea. Not a good idea. Careful about that. Okay. Okay. So there's one thing I gotta remember to take care of. That's this temp sensor, which I'm just going to gently try to peel off here. Which it's kind of coming off. I kind of scrape it up with my fingernail pretty hard. And this thing's attached a lot harder than I thought. I thought the only the rubber thing was holding it down, but it's kind of on there. I can get my fingernail up under it. Hopefully I won't break it. I would stick a screwdriver under there, but it's very small. It looks like it's coming loose. Wow. Okay, it's coming. So I got that. I'm just going to mount it right over here in the metal case. About right here. Hopefully that's going to stay. I'm going to put this on top of it. Okay, so I'm just kind of pushing this down. I'm going to pray that it stays. Okay, then this went under this connector before, not that I think that really matters. So I'm going to route it back in here. And, you know, I'm not sure which way it was oriented, which hopefully is not a problem. I may have to look at that. Okay, I've got this in. I'm trying to get these cables so they'll stay. I'm concerned that it needs to be at least not sticking up because the display goes on here and I'm not sure how much clearance is involved. So what I'm going to do is put a little wire tie around these to kind of keep them. I'm trying to unspring. I'm going to tuck it down in there and I'm going to pull this tight. Okay, so I'm going to clip this off close to here. Okay, so I think that'll sit, and then I'm going to take this and I'll probably go under this actually. Go under here, and hopefully my memory is right. There's two little tiny contacts you can see. I think those were sticking up when I pried it out. If the fan runs full speed, I'll know something's wrong though, and I know where to go. Hopefully that won't happen. So I'm just going to tuck this back down in here. Now before I put this back together, it's not imperative. I may suck up some of the dust in here. Other than that, I'm going to gently put the screen on. There's a fan down here with a bunch of dirt in it, fan over here. I will put the screen on. I'll be extremely careful plugging this guy back in. This one looks easy. This little vertical sync cable, some people say it's not absolutely needed. I'm going to try to get that in. I'm going to inspect it carefully, but I'll be putting this back together soon. Okay, so here I go. I've got the drive in. I vacuumed everything. I'm going to try to gently stick this back in where it goes. What I'm unclear about is how far this goes down in. So I'm just going to poke this like this. Take my flashlight. Sort of looks like everything's going to clear. So I'm going to start connecting things. So the first thing I'm going to connect is the ribbon cable, and I'll put some pictures in the video as to why. Basically, it's a there's a little flat piece of plastic, and there are 4 little, looks like foil or gold connectors glued down to the plastic. When Apple pushed it in, they scraped up, so they weren't in right. So what I did is I took a pick and a magnifying glass and I straightened them out, flattened them, and then I took some 5-minute epoxy, I mean a very small amount, put it under there. I held them down with my fingernail for like 3 or 4 minutes, and then I let go, and it looks like they dried properly. So I actually repaired the connector, and I'll show you a picture of before and after of that I took with my camera. So I want to stick that in first, because if it fails, I don't want to have everything else connected. So that's my concern right now. So I'll go ahead and try to do that. So it's the one right over here. I'm just going to push it gently in. So this is the ribbon cable picture that was damaged. Those looked a lot worse than they are. I had to take a pick and unfold them, straighten them out under a magnifying glass. I got them all kind of straightened out where they would lay down if I pushed them. So like I said before, I got some epoxy. I stuck it up under there, very small amounts, held it down with my fingernail for a number of minutes. And in the end, I think the repair came out pretty good, which you'll see in the next photo. So they're laying pretty flat. Okay, plan B. That's not what I'm going to do, because there's not enough space. This cable is too short to plug in first, so unfortunately it's got to be one of the last ones in. So I'll go in reverse order what I did the first time. Okay, so my ribbon cable fix worked. It went in. I was very careful putting in the video connector. I pushed the 2 metal tabs with my fingers, gently shoved it in. I think everything's okay. So now basically all I have to do is put the 8 screws in. I'm going to take like a lens cleaning duster brush and try to brush the LCD off, because somehow it's got dust on it. I don't know why. And put it back together and see if this thing works. Okay, so this is a long section. There was dust on the LCD, so I just took a brush from a camera lens cleaning kit and just brushed all the dust off. One of the other things I think may have happened, there was a lot of dust in here, which made me think it was a part before. This was a refurb from Apple, which may explain how the ribbon cable also was damaged. Maybe the person that was on the refurb line didn't do a good job. So anyway, while you're watching me clean this in a boring manner, I'll just describe what I did afterwards. So I got the machine going. It booted up. It recognized the solid state drive. I decided that I wanted to make a fusion drive. So what I ended up doing, I put another MacBook Pro in target disk mode. So basically you hold down T and you start it up, and it pops up with a big Firewire symbol on the screen. I connected that MacBook Pro in that state to this iMac. Turn this iMac on, hold down Option, then it comes up with optional boot drives. When I did that, That means I booted this iMac off the MacBook Pro. So at that point, I followed an article in MacWorld, which I've given you the URL to in the description. It basically tells you how to go in there and take your solid state drive and your 1 terabyte drive and make a fusion drive out of those. So your system thinks it's a 1.2 terabyte drive, and supposedly the OS will manage it appropriately and put all the things that need to be in the solid state section on the solid state, and all the big data files maybe on the spinning section. So that worked out pretty well. I'm restoring from Time Machine right now. The other thing I wanted to mention, that I did get 3 gigabits per second link speed using the DVD SATA cable. This about concludes this session. Good luck with this. I did make 2 backups, which I'm glad, because one of them did not work for me for some reason. So I'm glad I had a redundant. Hopefully this video will help you out. Thank you.